everybody, it's Christy back with another video, and we are going to test out some gouache today. So I bought this DaVinci gouache when it was on sale a while back. Lindsay, the frugal crafter, noticed the sale, and I immediately ran over there to buy some because this is a company of gouache that I really have been wanting to try for several reasons. The first of which is that they come in these really nice tubes that are pretty big. I can't remember the size on them, but I'm going to say they are like, 37 mils. Okay, so they're 37 milliliter tubes, which is a really nice size for gouache. They are from DaVinci, which is a great brand that has lots of, like, they do Lightfast testing, and I know that they're a very well respected brand. So I really wanted to test these. They were affordable, especially the sale. I think I got each of these tubes for like $6, which is a good deal for what you're getting here, right? So this is a big amount of gouache. So we have the following colors. We have Hansa Yellow Light. We have red. This is magenta. It looks purple, but it's magenta. And I did open it in a different video to show that it's pink. We're going to put them all on this palette anyway. We have yellow ochre. We have two blues, ultramarine blue and phthalo blue, because I like to have a cool and a warm of each of those. And then we have sap green, Payne's gray. We have burnt umber. And of course we have a tube of titanium white. So that is what we ended up getting for all of these. That's what I ended up getting when I did the sale. If I like them, I may go back and buy some more, but I figured today I would put them on one of my nice palettes, swatch them, and play with them a little bit and see what we thought about them. So I'm going to go ahead and line them up on this palette and then come back and I will swatch them out in real time so you can see and hear everything there is to know. All right, so let's talk first impressions, like right out the gate. Some of these tubes definitely have paint that seems more flowy than others, just putting them on the palette. Like, for example, this red and this yellow ochre seemed wetter with more filler. That's not necessarily a good or bad thing. It's just something I noticed. And then some of them seemed way thicker, like that brown was very thick and the white was very thick to get out of the containers. All right, so we're going to do a few different testing things. I've got an Arteza sketchbook here, and I'm just going to open it up, and I'm going to try to prop it up over here so we can see the whole thing, and it's not going to bother us or hurt anything. There we go. So that gets it where I want it to be, and I'm just going to go ahead and take every one of these colors, and I'm going to put a pretty good glob of this paint right on this page. And then I'm going to kind of try to pull it out as much as I can. That was the white. We're going to do some other tests on the white, but that's always the first test I like to start with, is just pulling a little glob and kind of seeing how it does like that. And I also want to see how like the glob dries down. There's a little glob. Pigments are really pretty so far. And again, just a reminder, as with all things on this channel, I am an art hobbyist. I do this for fun. My opinion is my own. So if you don't like these paints or you love these paints, feel free to disagree with me. It's okay. All right, so right now I'm getting some real pretty vibrant colors. Using them from the tube seems like I get a lot of nice movement. They don't seem hard to use from the tube. Ooh, that phthalo color. I love that color. And that color seems a little more intense, but that is a phthalo color, so it should technically be a little more intense. Now, I went with a sap green because I figured without a cadmium yellow, I do have a yellow ochre, but without a cadmium yellow, it would be harder to mix a sap green with what I have. We're going to play with some color mixes here as well on this palette. Let's get a yellow ochre swatchy. And in general, I like gouache for like florals and landscapes. So these colors that I have here tend to be colors I'm more likely to use for that purpose. This one feels interesting because this one was really chunky, but now it seems to be moving a little strangely. I'll have to play with that a little more. And then this is Payne's Gray. Ooh, that's a pretty Payne's Gray. It's very dark. So one of the first things I want to test in general is to mix some of this Payne's Gray over here with some of the white. See what kind of a cool gray I get. So this cool gray, it's really pretty. A very blue cool gray, but not, it's pretty neutral. It's not got as much of a blue undertone as one might expect. All right, let's go ahead and do some more traditional primary mixes. So let's see if I mix the yellow and the red here. So I'm able to get a really nice orange, like the pumpkin orange. Let's do this yellow with this magenta. I should be able to get a different variety, but still a red color. So that's a little bit more of an orange red. Let's do yellows and greens together. This is the ultramarine. So I should get a pretty traditional looking green, almost like a hooker's green. Very nice. I should get something a little more akin to Viridian if I go with the phthalo green. And yeah, these are mixing beautifully. Look at that. I should get Viridian, and I get Viridian. That's amazing. All right, let's do some purple mixes. We should get a nice muddy purple if I go red and blue. That was a little bit too much blue and not enough red. Let's add a little more red to this. Okay, now I want a little bit more blue, but not a ton. Okay, there we go. There we go. That's like the eggplanty purple I would expect. Really pretty. Now we're going to do this red and this blue. So that was the, this should be muddier. It is. It's almost black. So I did the warm red and the cool blue. Now I'm going to do the cool red with the warm blue. Beautiful dioxazine kind of color. That's really pretty. And then if I do the pinky color with, I'm almost out of phthalo. Let's grab some phthalo blue here. Didn't get very much of that on the palette here. There. Now we have too much. Let's take some of that, mix it here. So we first get this like almost Albrecht blue kind of color. Let's add a little bit more pink to that. We should get something a little more vibrantly purple, but it's got this really pretty blue lean. Love that. And if we go more purple yet in there, we should hit a mauve color. Yeah, there's mauve. So I was able to mix all of these colors down here by simply using, and let me mark them with a pen. My yellow, my 2 reds, and my 2 blues. Oh, and Payne's gray and white. So again, if I were really looking for a more curated palette, I may just get the primaries, white and Payne's gray. And then can I get to some of these other colors? So let's see how close I can get to the green just with what I currently have. Oops, there was color on there. Oh, well, that's the nature of gouache. So we've got a dirty yellow here now. Let's mix this with a tiny bit of ultramarine to see how close I can get to sap green. So that's pretty watery, but it's not far. It's not far from it. I could add, so if I go a little bit harder there, yeah, it's not far from it at all. If I wanted it to be a little bit darker with gouache, the easiest way to do that would be just to tap in a little Payne's gray. And yeah, bam, bam, look. Look how close that is. So yeah, I mean, it can be done. It's a convenience color that I know I was going to use. Generally speaking, to make burnt sienna, I would take like a Prussian blue and an orange. So if I take this orange here and I add a tiny bit of phthalo blue to it, that's pretty close, and I didn't try very hard. So, I mean, that's pretty good. And then to get that yellow ochre, I would take maybe a titch of the yellow, and you want to mute it down with a complementary color. So I would probably take like a little bit of this mauve to start. I mean, just off the top, right? That's pretty easy to do. So yeah, you wouldn't necessarily need those other colors. I think that the ones that I have a little arrow next to would be my ones to start with. All right, now the next thing I want to see is how nicely this white's on top. So I'm going to get this white nice and mixed up with the brush. I'm using the Sarah Burns Studio Craft-A-Mo brushes. I love these for gouache. I also, other gouache brushes I use a lot. The Rosemary and Company Evergreen line has a really nice brush. They hold a decent amount of water. There, why is this not focusing? There we go. They hold a decent amount of water, but they have shorter bristles. That's what I like about these two. And then a more affordable line than those two that I really like are the Royal and Langnickel Mythos brushes. I like the mermaid ones because I just do. And I like to use these all of the time with my gouache. So let's go ahead and let's just go and do a few white tests. So let's do some white over top here. Again, I'm trying to get it wet down so that it's pretty opaque and pretty much just a full gouache business. So let's go over top here like that. Let's go over the green a little bit and see what happens. Let's go over this a little bit and see what happens. Do like a stroke over here, but it looks like it's pretty good. Let's try the Payne's on top of the Payne's gray, because that would be a real test. And I do notice that if I go a couple times, it's going to start picking up the gray. But that's pretty common. Generally speaking, with gouache, you have to be pretty intentional with your brush strokes. And you want it to be pretty fresh and not too wet. And this was pretty dry as far as white gouache goes. So I'm trying to wet it up without diluting it too much here. but I feel like I'm getting a pretty good result with that. So we'll let those tests all dry. I am going to go ahead and maybe do a floral piece here for fun, and then maybe use some of these paints to do another piece as well. I may film myself doing all of the pieces, or I may do some off camera and talk about my thoughts about this gouache. I am going to do a little bit of looking on the website to tell you a little more about Lightfastness and stuff like that, if that matters to you. And the other thing I did want to mention, these caps are on very nice. I do like that when you unscrew the cap, you have a nice wide tip here. It's not tiny. And for gouache, I feel like that's really nice because you're getting a nice dollop without having to squeeze too much out. And the only thing that I don't love is that the grippers on these caps are like really rough and they hurt a lot on my hands. But you can just use a rag and you're fine. But it is something worth mentioning if you have sensitive hands or sensitive skin, that might be a little bit of a tough grip for you. And otherwise, I didn't see any flaws in my tubes. Everything came nicely packaged and feels nice and high quality. So let me go ahead and do some painting with these, and we will come back and talk about Lightfastness, thoughts, etc. All right, so I have been playing with this gouache for a while now, and I really like it, just bar none. That's my statement. So I did this little piece, and I love how it turned out. Again, I'm not the world's greatest gouache artist, but I like that gouache has a little more opacity than watercolor, and I can do a little bit more with white with gouache than I can with pure watercolor. So I tend to use gouache both with thick strokes and with watery strokes. So I kind of do, you know, a little bit of an in-between of watercolor and like a true gouache technique, I think. And I really enjoyed using this gouache for that purpose. It wet down really nicely. It stayed wet pretty nicely. I didn't have to work too hard once it started to dry on my palette. But even once it was dry in spots on my palette, I was really able to reactivate it without too much trouble. And I really felt like I was able to get nice, rich pigments and depth of pigment really easily. So let's go ahead and do a tape pull here. Let's try. This tape has been on this page for a long time. It was a World Watercolor Month page that I taped down and I didn't use. And the prompt there says otherworldly, and that's definitely not what happened here. I just used the tape that was already done because I wanted it to finally have paint on it. So let's see if this comes off okay. It is Holbein soft tape, so it should come off of my etcher book without too much trouble, but I'm going to be extra careful here. All right, so let's do this tape pull. Anytime you're doing a tape pull, you want to go away from your picture and you want to go slowly. And if you're worried, and this is definitely taking some of that paper off, but not where we are connected, which is nice. But if you're ever worried, you can always run a little bit of like a hair dryer over top and it will help. But yeah, this is turning out to be really nice. And I will go ahead and write something else there in a minute so that it indicates what I did. Last tape pull. Trying not to ruin the watercolor paper on the opposite page here. Okay. So that turned out really cute. I might make this one into a print. I really like it. I think it's super, super fun. And I love the little like strokes in the back. That was thanks to this, where's the Sarah Burns brush that I really like? It's like a stroke brush. I love this brush, this 1/4 inch. It's so much fun to play with. All right, so let's talk a little bit about like what else I painted. I also did this, which is going to go into my February bullet journal as my bullet journal piece. And it turned out really nice. And the colors are really vibrant and beautiful. And I was able to get different arrangements of lightness and opacity in here. And I'm probably actually going to put it maybe that way. I don't know, maybe this way. I don't know. I'll have to figure out which direction I'm going to put it in my bullet journal. But I do really like how that turned out. All of this gouache has a Lightfast rating on it of either 1 or 2, and it gives you the pigment information right on there. Tells you how it finishes, creamy consistency, smooth flow, matte finish. So the yellow ochre is considered excellent. The Payne's Gray is considered very good. And it gives you the pigments in here. So this is a single pigment. Those were both single pigments. Excellent Lightfastness, single pigment, which is kind of cool when they can do that. Very good Lightfastness on the Phthalo Blue single pigment of PB15. Excellent Lightfastness on the Burnt Umber single pigment of PBR7. Excellent Lightfastness on the Titanium White, which is, of course, PW6. Did this one say smooth flow? Yeah, they all say creamy consistency, smooth flow, matte finish. So far, I haven't seen any that say anything differently. Ultramarine Blue is, of course, PB29 and has an excellent Lightfast rating. The Sap Green is an excellent Lightfast rating, and it is the first one with 2 pigments. It's got PG7 Phthalo Green and PY42 Iron Oxide Yellow. I think it's the first one with 2 pigments. Now I'm going to look and make sure I didn't miss anything anywhere. 1, 1, 1, 1. Yeah, they all had 1 up to now. So this is the first one with 2. Hansa Yellow Light has very good Lightfastness and uses PY3. And last but not least, our Magenta uses very good Lightfastness too, and is using PV19. So yeah, that's like a huge bonus. They have the Lightfastness information on there. I didn't get any that were fugitive. I will look, and in the description of this video, I will list if I find any on the website that appear to be fugitive so that you can stay away from them. And I really like that most of these are single pigment. That's not that that really matters, but the more you blend pigments, the more you can invite mud. And with gouache, that's already kind of a concern that I have. So I really like that those were single pigments, and it showed here. When I did the testing, let me bring this back now so that we can see the dried white gouache. And look how that dried white gouache is just absolutely 100% covering very nicely there. So that white gouache is good stuff. So even if you only bought the white gouache from this line, I think that it would work really nicely. I will have to test that against my Holbein gouaches and, I mean, I guess Magic Fly, but my Holbein, and I think mainly I use Holbein white gouache. That's my main tube that I like, but it is expensive. And so if this is as good as it and is more affordable, that's going to be super cool. So that's something to consider. But what I was really getting at there was with those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 colors, look at all of those rich blends that we got without any mud whatsoever. We were able to get vibrant, warm, and cool tones. And I think that that is really amazing that we were able to do that much work with that little gouache. All right, so last but not least today, I want to talk a little bit about the pricing of these. So I did go and take a look on the website. They have no colors that are fugitive. Every single one of these is either a light fast rating of excellent or very good on their website. The line of artist gouache that DaVinci has is limited. So I have maybe a third of the line right here. So you're not getting quite as much variety as you would say with a ShinHan or a Holbein. I don't have the ShinHan paints yet. I did order the Sarah Burns Craftimo boxes and they are on their way to me. So we will start to talk about the ShinHan gouache paints as this year progresses. It's another thing I'm looking forward to. But because I don't have those and I can't feel them to talk about them, I'm only going to do a price comparison between DaVinci and Holbein today because that's what I have and that's what I think is comparable here. The DaVinci gouaches range between about $8.70 to $12.30 per gouache, and that's on Blick or DaVinci's website. There were 3 that were really more expensive. The quinacridone rose, the vermilion, and the orange, for some reason, had a higher price tag. So I pulled those out, and I just stayed with the other range, did a little average. So it turns out to be about $10.50 per 37 milliliters, which gives us an average price of about 28 cents per milliliter, minus those 3 more expensive colors, which I definitely think you could get away with never using. I think that you could 100% use other colors to supplement that higher price tag if you were wanting. And I didn't look at sets. There may be sets that are actually even a better deal than this. I'm just looking apples to apples at single tubes of gouache because if I am a consumer, before I invest in an entire set of gouache, I'm going to buy a couple single tubes of it to see if I really like it. And so I would be investing in like 3 primaries and a white before I would buy a whole set. So that's why I'm doing this comparison with the individual open stock pricing. Holbein, again, I did Holbein on Blick as well. 15 milliliters, so that's a big difference in what you're getting per tube, is ranging from $8.30 to $14.46. And there were a lot more that were more expensive than that, but their range is a lot deeper. So if you guys want me to do a deep dive on pricing, I will, but everybody can kind of go on Blick and look themselves. But for about comparable colors, you were ranging about $8.30 to $14.46. I averaged that to $11.30 per 15 milliliter tube. And so that's costing you about 76 cents per milliliter. So it is about 3 times to, 2.5 times more expensive to invest in the Holbein gouaches. Now, I love my Holbein gouaches, don't get me wrong. And there are some more affordable sets and options that you can go with if you want to buy the Holbein gouaches. But if you're looking for a gouache that has that feel and is artist grade, these DaVincis seem like a slam dunk. I am definitely really excited to have them in my collection and to use them and utilize them. Once I actually played with them, whether they came out of the tube more watery or a little bit stiffer, didn't really seem to matter for my type of painting. But if that is something that you are concerned with, you should probably watch more than just my review to make your informed decision about this gouache. I'm going to keep playing with this gouache as the months go on. I'm very much looking forward to doing some artist trading cards in 2 weeks as a live. I'm going to announce that here in a day or two. And so whenever I'm doing that, you can come to the live and see me play with them live and see what you think as well. But did you guys pick any of these up when they were on sale? And if not, what do you think of them? What did you think of the color testing I did? What did I miss or didn't I do that you would like to know about these paints? Let me know all that in the comments below. And that's going to be it for me today. I hope that this inspires you to paint a gouache landscape today. And we will see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.